I found out in my many years in MAC now that one of the things that we have the most problem with is communicating with one another. That shouldn't come as any surprise to you, or it certainly is none to me, because of the very nature of the job we have. We're everywhere, it seems, all the time. I remember when I was a squadron commander, I was always told that if I wanted to give $50 to everyone in the squadron, it would probably take me a whole month to do it. By that very analogy, then, if I were to want to give something to everyone that they may not particularly want to hear, it'd certainly take me a lot longer to do it than that. So rather than write you all a letter or force you to come to a movie theater or something like that, I thought I'd use the medium, or at least try the medium of television, and have an occasional session with all of the people of MAC and tell you some of the things that are on my mind. And then as I come out and travel around the command and have the opportunity to see you in person, maybe we can communicate a little better, maybe we can learn to know one another a little better, and you can tell me what's going on inside of your mind, and I'll attempt to do some of that in mine. I have a few notes of some things that I did want to talk to you about specifically today. The first videotape that I used with you, I think I'd like to talk about the thing that I believe that we must keep in mind, no matter what we do or what part of this great command we're in or what our specific job is, and that's something fairly lofty, but something that we can always go back to, no matter whether things are going terribly good or terribly bad, or what the frustration of the moment might be. And that's the importance of, just the simple importance of what we do in this command. It's referred to as the mission of MAC, certainly. But really what it is what we're here and what MAC is all about. I think it came home to me more than it has for a long, long time. And in January of this year, when our new secretary, Secretary Russ Rourke, came out and spent a couple days here at headquarters MAC with me and the MAC staff, he and his wife spent time going into every facet of the command, and were terribly curious about what we did and terribly excited about what we did. So it was an opportunity to see through the eyes of somebody who had not had a lot to do with MAC what he thought of MAC. And here's what he said as he left. As a matter of fact, he was sitting right here in this chair being interviewed by some of our people, and he said, "The breadth of MAC's mission is not something that leaps out at you until you see it firsthand. My first impression was that MAC had a far broader scope of responsibility than I had anticipated or really had ever imagined. And I felt a sense of relief, if you will, that the mission was being carried out and executed with great professional expertise." I guess that does two things for me. Certainly the latter part of his statement says to me that you're doing a great job every day. I believe that. And it's nice to have our new secretary feel that. The other thing it tells you is that the extent and the breadth of our job isn't something that everybody recognizes or realizes every day. The people who work in supply, people who work in maintenance, the people who do our personnel work for us, the air crews, somehow we get not bogged down in what we do every day, but we get so engrossed in doing it and doing it well that it's good, I think, sometimes to just sit back and have a look at how great our command is and what we do. I use the term a lot of times, the world just simply doesn't hiccup without MAC getting involved, and that's true if you think about it a minute. Our airlifters, our special ops people, our air rescue people, our combat photographers, the Air Weather Service, no matter where you go in any military exercise or real-world operation, there's some military airlift command people there. The worldwide daily presence we have, we provide indeed a deterrent posture because we are the ability of our country to react quickly to things that are happening around the world. Last year, while many other military people in our country trained for war or for a contingency, MAC units launched their forces on real-world contingencies, emergencies, 13 different times. I think we must keep that fact in sight. I think we must not belabor it, but we must always understand it, and we must remind ourselves that the job we are in MAC is not just a simple ho-hum job, nor is it like any other ordinary military job. It's not. It's an extraordinary job. I've used the quote several times that D-Day for MAC is really 365 days a year. We're not sitting around planning for D-Day. There's some part of this great force of ours, some part of the 95,000 active duty and some 50,000 reservists that are involved in something all the time. So no matter if we're at war or at peace or what, or if we're somewhere in between there, MAC mission's at hand. We're at hand as a stability force. The high tails of our airplanes, our helicopters, are seen everywhere in the world, and sometimes it's the only American presence in many of the troubled spots of our world. Because we're stationed around the world and because we roam the world at large, we know far better than most what kind of world we're in and what the threats really are. And although we tend to sometimes take that for granted because that's the macho way to do things, in fact, we see what the world is like because we live in it. We realize that our country faces lots of unreasonable people making unreasonable threats against the security of free men everywhere, and the part we play in avoiding that or in putting down that threat cannot be overemphasized, and I think it's good for each of us to sit down occasionally and think of that. Sometimes that's the only thing we have positive to think about. At any rate, the uncertainty caused by the nature of an unstable world that makes our lives so very, very unstable is something that I think it's something that we cannot overemphasize. We in the Military Airlift Command have a very unstable life. One of the many things that we find out as we travel around the command is that if we could just simply stop the world a while and stabilize the MAC force and quit being reactive to everything, it would sure make it a lot easier on our people. The fact is we just can't do that. You can't stop the world. You can't change the way things are. And to provide a stability for free men around the world, it looks like our lives, yours and mine, will by nature be unstable. That doesn't mean that it should be an irritating job. And matter of fact, I see my job as to remove those kind of irritants from you, the members of the command, as many as I possibly can, so we can have as stable and as nearly normal a life for our families and for ourselves as we possibly can. But there will always be some uncertainty in this world, and because of that, there will always be some instability in our lives. Our primary job will always be to bring stability into the world, and that's a world I would characterize as being a world that is very far from being benign, although I certainly wish it would be the other way around. Therefore, in the future, if we're involved in some or in any kind of conflict, it will be because of some action or lack of action our country has taken, and I think you and I will be a part of that action or lack of action that our country takes. We find ourselves in a very unstable time now, a time that our country is struggling with some very real deficit and budgetary problems. It's a time that people like you and I have to keep our good sense of balance so we're not overly affected by the rhetoric and the utterances that we see each day in the media that comes from some of the leadership of our country. What we've got to do is remember we've got the job to do in spite of what goes on, and we're going to do that, and we'll do it to the best of our ability, and that's what's expected of us. Each of you individually is important to each person in our country. I think you've got to remember that. I think that's important. As lofty as it is, each one of you is important to all of the millions of people that inhabit this great country and really far beyond our shores. The reason for that is that Americans have entrusted to you, the American public has entrusted to you and me what is most important, and that's our country's physical well-being. And I would offer to you that there is no greater cause that anyone has. And you fulfill our nation's trust each and every day and do it so extremely well. And that does not go unrecognized. As a matter of fact, I think the public support for the man in uniform today is just simply as good as it's ever been. We do our job so well that our nation's leaders, in fact, expect the best of us to be routine. But there's nothing that we do in our business is routine. It really is not. This dependability has its costs with it. Certainly, there are prices to be paid to be dependable as we are expected to be each time. We're expected to be on call at a moment's notice. And it seems like not a week goes by in this command that we don't test that somehow in a real-world on-call situation. But it's the security of the country that's at hand, and accepting insecurity because of the lack of security of this world is an inevitable part of our job, and that's what we signed up to a long time ago. Our careers in MAC are certainly vastly different than most military careers. And our careers are incomparably different than any civilian job that I know of. But I guess that's what makes it exciting, and that's why people like you and I sign up to be in this business. And it's an exciting business, it really is. It's exciting, and people, like the people in our command, full of enthusiasm and hope, and those sorts of things make the job even better each day. I can think of a lot of easier ways to make a living, I really can. But I cannot think for the life of me of a more satisfying way to make a living than, first of all, defending our country, and secondly, being associated with people, the quality of the people we have in our command. I'll be traveling the command and seeing most of you, and I hope to see all of you personally at some time or another. As I do, if you have any thoughts on the mission of our command, or how we can introduce into our mission, as reactive as its nature is, some stability, I want to hear about it. We work on that all the time, but I don't believe we'll ever solve that problem 100%. That requires a great deal of patience on particularly your family's part, and certainly on your part too as the members. I think the MAC team we have, the team of active duty reservists, civilian, and our families, is an unbeatable, unstoppable team, and I'm very, very proud to be part of it. And I think I'll enjoy a brief bit of communications through this medium with you, and I'll try to do it often enough, first of all, that it won't bore you. Secondly, that you'll know where I'm coming from, and I hope I can hear from you either directly or even an occasional letter from the field might give me some insights into some things that I don't understand. With that, I wish you the best of luck in everything in each one of your jobs, and whatever you do, be sure and do it safely.